everybody kept quiet about it. Silence. I think truth is a very important weapon. It's the important weapon. It works much better than any gun. I'm quite sure that Anthony Eden would never have got away with that nonsense in Suez, invading Suez, had he known that there was we know there'd been a plot between the French and the British and the Israelis to conduct that war. That's what he got away with. He didn't get away with it because it was stopped at the end, but that's what he tried to get away with. I think truth is a very, very important instrument for all of us, and I think that Bradley Mannings in this world don't deserve imprisonment. I think they deserve Victoria Crosses. If you could get Victoria Crosses in your American Army, I don't much care actually. What you can get anything he should get acknowledgement from the world for what he's done. And I think that to allow this to go on, this kind of ongoing torture. And I just have to say, rather like the Remand Muslims, I have to say to myself, what are they doing this for? Is the aim of the exercise actually to eliminate him? I think they're driving him out of his mind. They're driving him into suicide in some way or other. Is that what it's all about? It could well be. Certainly it's true of the Muslims here. They're way out of no hope for the future. So I believe that now our voices, well, aren't many here, but I will certainly help in any way I can to expand the awareness of ordinary people about what's going on. It is wicked, absolutely wicked. He's entitled, at the very minimum, he's entitled to decent, humane prison conditions with access to visitors and access to reading material and access to all the things that keep your brain alive. That he's entitled to, and he's absolutely entitled to a rapid trial, fairly conducted on open evidence. That's what he's entitled to, and we should demand it. Thank you very much for coming. Let's support it. Thank you.
As you know, we're just one of 30 actions taking place internationally. Actions which have come together purely in the last 2 weeks. Really, there are actions taking place all over Europe, in Canada, Australia, and the United States. And I'm thrilled that we have such a strong turnout in London. I really am. As the banner in front of me says, today is the 298th day that Bradley is spending in solitary confinement in Monaco. In a marine military prison. He spends 23 hours out of 24 in his cell. He takes meals in his cell. He has 1 hour which he can spend either for exercise or to write letters. But he only has 1 hour. If he decides to exercise, he's taken to an empty room. The rest of the room is locked down while he's transported. He's taken there in shackles. He's taken to an empty room with no windows, and he can walk around in figure eights. That's the one opportunity he has to exercise. He doesn't spend that full hour exercising. He's taken back to his cell immediately. Every 5 minutes, one of Bradley's Marine guards asks him if he's okay. He has to say yes. Every 5 minutes. He can't just nod his head. He can't just look at the guy and the guy doesn't understand. He has to say yes, sir. I am okay. Every 5 minutes. That, to me, over a period of many months, is torture. No touch torture is torture. You're entirely right. What is happening, we're talking about a young man who turned 23 in December, a US soldier, also a UK citizen, being imprisoned in Guantanamo conditions in the continental United States. And it's not just me who is saying this. Over the past week, especially, we've seen voices in the media, not just the usual friendly voices like the LA Times and the Guardian, but other voices, the New York Times, the Washington Post, neither of them particularly critical of the US administration, saying, what the hell is going on here? This should not be allowed to happen. This is unjust, and the US administration needs to give some serious answers about this. Amnesty has released a strongly worded statement this week. So has Human Rights Watch, and so is the American Civil Liberties Union. And in this country, Anne Fluid, on Thursday morning, raised that business questions, and questions to Sir George Young, the News of the House, saying what was happening to Bradley is similar to what is being meted out to prisoners at Guantanamo. And Sir George Young did not agree. He indicated that her concerns were widely shared. That, I feel, is pretty significant. To reiterate, Bradley Manning has not been found guilty of anything. His trial date has not been set. It seems likely that the US is not in any particular hurry to set a trial date for Bradley. They'll continue psychologically torturing him until they break him before they do the decency, grant him the decency of a trial. I think it's important to recognise that even under the strict military rules that govern the conditions of Bradley's detention, what is happening to him at the moment is not allowed. Punishment before trial under the Uniform Code of Military Justice is not allowed. Not being brought to trial speedily under the Uniform Code of Military Justice is not allowed. And putting someone under suicide watch to discipline them rather than to protect them is emphatically not allowed. And the US military knows it's not allowed. When we brought it to their attention, this is one of the great things we've managed to do online, that the reason why Bradley had been put under suicide watch was an illegitimate reason. That resulted in the then commander of the Marine Brigade Quantico being fired. We got James Aberard fired. What he did was not allowed. The campaign is already having an impact. Just last week, PJ Crowley, Hillary Clinton's press spokesman, said that what his colleagues in the Department of Defense were doing to Bradley was, and I quote, ridiculous and counterproductive and stupid. This resulted in the President of the United States being questioned directly on what was happening to Bradley, shortly after which PJ Crowley was forced to resign, as they say. So the disunity in the US administration on this point is becoming increasingly evident. And make no mistake, it's our campaign which is bringing this point to the fore and making the US look very awkward indeed. Here in the UK, we have a special responsibility to speak out for Bradley. Because Bradley is not just a US citizen, he's a British citizen as well, by virtue of the fact that his mother is Welsh and she was born in Wales, and Bradley was born after 1983. This means that automatically, from birth, Bradley became a British citizen, and he remains one today. And this is not just a legal technicality. Between the ages of 13 and 17, Bradley lived in Haverfordwest in Wales. He attended school there. He took his GCSEs in Wales. He left halfway through his A-levels to go back to the States. But he has real and concrete ties to this country. His mother still lives in the area. His whole maternal family, in fact, still live in the area. And there are people who still live in the area who knew Bradley well. So Bradley's ties to this country are real. And as a result of this, I'm really delighted to say that this is now a parliamentary issue as well, as of this week, thanks to Anne Clwyd. I would like to strongly encourage you all to write to your Member of Parliament and encourage them to sign Anne Clwyd's early day motion 1642, which she tabled on Friday. This early day motion, and I'll quote it to you. So ask your MP to sign that this House expresses great concern at the treatment of Private First Class Bradley Manning, currently detained at the US Quantico Marine Base. Notes the increasing level of interest and concern in the UK, and particularly in Wales, appeals to the US administration to ensure that his detention conditions are humane, and calls on the UK government to raise the case with the US administration. So to note interest and concern, appeal to the US government to ensure that his conditions are humane, and to ask the UK government to raise the case. This is not a big ask for any of your MPs, who presumably don't think torture is okay. I would encourage you to get your MP to sign an early day motion 1624. And if they can't, 1624. I would encourage your MPs to sign this. And if they can't do, question whether they should actually be your MP at all, if they can't. I'd like to reiterate that I know it seems like we have an enormous hill to climb here, but your action really does make an enormous difference. This is one of those issues, one of those rare issues where writing to your MP is actually the most proactive thing you can do, because I strongly believe it is diplomatic pressure from this country on the US that, is one of our best hopes of, improving the material conditions that Bradley is experiencing at the moment. And we've made a big difference already. Just over the course of the last couple of months, a relatively small number of campaigners already achieved quite a great deal. I would remind you that at the beginning of this year, the fact that Bradley was a UK citizen was not reported anywhere in the UK press. It was due to a concerted campaign online that we got The Guardian to break the story on their front page on the 2nd of February. And we've now come so far that even the BBC yesterday published a report, BBC Wales, quoting Bradley Manning's deputy head as saying, where is it? It really is fairly shameful that the British government isn't doing anything about one of its own citizens. That in itself, that we've come that far, is an achievement, because this was not even on the public record at the beginning of this year, and now it's being debated in Parliament. This is now a mainstream political issue in this country. It's not a complex issue, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about a British citizen being tortured in a country that claims to be civilised. It's not a complex issue. Shouldn't be difficult to sort out, surely. The UK media is now looking at us. The UK government is now looking at us. If we speak, we will be heard. So I encourage you to do all you can to raise awareness of what is happening to Bradley and the UK government's responsibility to help him. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Once it was behind our backs and now it's in our face. And did you think and do you think we'd take it on the nod? You're having a laugh, mate. Not a bloody chance, mate. You must think you're God. Oh! Stop the torture! 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 Is that right? Yeah, from Wales, we've got a campaign which took off a bit like a rocket. It was all happened just this last month. We've had, week after week, we've had stories in our local county press, and on Saturday it was on the local radio announced on their news bulletin that we were coming to London, and we've had something in the Western Mail and this Good Morning Wales, so it's been reported widely. And as Naomi was saying, Anne Clwyd, who's a Welsh MP, has been bringing it up in Parliament, and Jill Evans, who's a Plaid Cymru MEP, has written to Baroness Ashton, who's their foreign affairs person from the EU, to inquire into what's going on, what the hell's going on. And our Plaid Cymru county representatives have denounced the torture strongly in the press. So it's all happened very quickly. And the MPs are getting a hassling from lots of emails and letters going to them. But what will happen to this rocket? Will it fizzle out now they've got distraction from Libya? Or even if it continues, what difference can a small country like Wales make to the might of the USA military? Well, it's actually a bigger issue than that, I think. I think it's to do with a battle between humanity and sensible justice and openness and secrecy and vengeful justice and cruelty. And it's a bigger battle than just this one individual. It reminds me of Tolkien, it reminds me of Harry Potter perhaps a bit more aptly, seeing as Bradley Manning shares the youth and innocence and thick glasses with Harry Potter. And it is really the young people that we have to turn to, because we need hope from somewhere. And this campaign has been run by very young people. It's very young people in the Middle East who are rising up against despots. It's young people in Pembrokeshire and a young country like Wales, which has stood up to corporate power with genetic modification and many other battles and been successful. And so, on that note of hope, reliance on our young people, I will call on the young people of Pembrokeshire to give me a hand here.
We, the young people of Pembrokeshire, have always been encouraged to tell the truth and fight for what we believe in. I find it deeply disturbing to believe that Bradley Manning is being held in prison on suspicion of telling the truth. It is unfair that he is being punished for enlightening the public about the inhumane murder disguised as war that is going on in the public's name.
It is stated under the Human Rights Act that a suspect is innocent until proven guilty. I am concerned that this is not being upheld in Bradley Manning's case. Bradley has showed incredible bravery in the actions enforced upon him. For instance, he is being kept under chains with no movement of his hands. Bradley is an inspiration to all of us. We need to stand up for what we believe in. This man who stood up and spoke out for what is right is being force-fed antidepressants, which is slowly killing that voice that has inspired me and many others. We are now taking a stand and speaking on behalf of Bradley. Why are you doing this? Why is he being tortured when there is no evidence that he has done anything wrong?
Bradley Manning may or may not have committed a crime under his legal contract. However, it is wrong to keep him in these appalling conditions without a fair trial. Who is to be the judge of what is right and wrong? If someone commits a crime, it is not wrong to make people aware of this. So why is Bradley being punished for making the world aware of the great injustice being committed in Iraq? If it is illegal to stop the slaughter of innocent people, then maybe we need to question the laws we live under. Thank you.
Is that working? Yeah. Yeah, I think over my decades of involvement in the anti-war movement, I've always been very struck by military veterans who enter the movement, and how steep and how quickly their learning curve is, and how radical their analysis is. And really graced today to be joined by Ben Griffin, who the government has attempted to silence and gag sharing his reflections about this war. I myself have gone under a lifetime injunction from British Aerospace, so it's a lot of upping and diving. But we know from Wikipedia and statements made by Ben before he was gagged in a secret court case in the High Court that he's a former British SAS soldier who refused to return to Iraq after his first tour and left the army citing not only the illegal tactics of the United States troops and the policies of coalition forces, but also that the invasion itself was illegal and contrary to international law. He expected to be court-martialed but was instead let go with a glowing testimonial from his commanding officer. He previously served a 3-month tour of Baghdad alongside American forces, including Delta Force. And these are some of the reflections he had before this state silenced him. The Americans had a well-deserved reputation for being trigger-happy. In the 3 months that I was in Iraq, the soldiers I served with never shot anybody. When you ask the Americans why they killed people, they would say, quote, "We're up against the tough foreign fighters." I didn't see any foreign fighters in the time I was over there. I can remember coming in off one operation which took place outside of Baghdad, where we had detained some civilians who were clearly not insurgents. They were innocent people. I couldn't understand why we had done this, so I said to my troop commander, would we have behaved the same way in the Balkans or Northern Ireland? He shrugged his soldiers and said, "This is Iraq." And I thought, and that makes it right? Commenting in a similar vein to another former British SAS soldier, Griffin also gives his account of how the Americans view Iraqis. As far as the Americans were concerned, the Iraqi people were subhuman. You could almost split the Americans into two groups, ones who were complete crusaders intent on killing Iraqis, and the others who were in Iraq because the army was going to pay their college fees. They had no understanding or interest in the Arab culture. The Americans would talk to the Iraqis as if they were stupid, and these weren't isolated cases. This was from the top down. There might be one or two enlightened officers who understood the situation a bit better, but on the whole, that was their general attitude. Their attitude will fuel the insurgency. I think the Iraqis detested them. So with certain limitations, I'd like to introduce Ben Griffin to the platform.
Thanks a lot for inviting me here today. Kieran once said to me that if 1% of the population actively resisted these wars, and the rest of us, the 99% of us, supported the people who resisted, you know, like helping out when they were in prison and helping out when they got in trouble, then these wars would never happen. So I'm here today as one of the 99% supporting Brad, and I hope what we're doing today gets through to him somehow, so he knows there is support, you know, around the world, and you know, that he's not alone, and that we're thinking about him. Bruce talked about state secrets, and I think the heart of this imprisonment comes down to the state trying to maintain its dirty little secrets, and Brad's bravely tried to expose these secrets and open up the box for us all to have a look inside, and the state doesn't like that, and that's why Brad's in prison. A lot of us, not me personally, but a lot of people were very optimistic when Barack Obama became the president. You know, great, we've got a black guy in the White House, and he's going to sort all this war on terror stuff out. But actually, I don't think anything's improved at all. At least with George Bush and his cronies, they told you what they were doing. They were quite open about it, you know. But Barack Obama has continued this war on terror, but he's turned it into an even more secret war. Guantanamo is still open, rendition still carried out, masses of people are imprisoned all over the world in secret prisons. The attacks in Pakistan have gone through the roof, you know, these extrajudicial killings where people are just taken out from drones flown from fucking Las Vegas. The treatment of Bradley, I think, is a direct result of 10 years. We've had 10 years where both ourselves and the Americans have normalised degrading behaviour to other human beings. We did it in Afghanistan and Iraq and all over the Middle East. So it's become normal to treat other humans like this. And that's why it seems normal for the Americans, those prison guards in Quantico, to treat Bradley in this inhumane manner. I'd just like to finish by saying that I've never met Bradley, and you know, I only heard about him in the last few months, but he seems to me like an incredibly brave young man, and he's being hammered for he's being hammered because of our lack of action in opposing this crap that's been going on for 10 years. And I can't remember who told me, but quite a long time ago someone said I was out in Northern Ireland and they had all these cameras, these surveillance cameras and number plate reading cameras, and I was like, well, I never knew you could do all this. He goes, yeah, don't worry, it'll be back in the UK soon. And all of this technology and brutality that is used in foreign wars eventually comes back, you know, into our society, and that's what's happening to Brad now. So thanks a lot, and keep strong, Brad.
Come on, come on. And song from the Welsh Teenagers.
I wish I could say, all the things that I should say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'll be starting anew. Well, I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I soar to the sun, I look down at the sea, and I sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Yes, I sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
And choose the Kiwi. There's a bit of sibling rivalry down there in South Pacific. There's a Kiwi in the crowd. Oh my God. But I remember in the 80s when New Zealand took a very moral stand on nuclear weapons, and the Australian government suspended all military cooperation with New Zealand. The French went in and blew up the Rainbow Warrior. And then New Zealand went on to, they had an inquiry into their submarine surveillance, and they concluded that in the last 30 years of submarine surveillance, they hadn't seen a submarine. So they got rid of the Orions, and they said, what the hell, let's get rid of the whole Air Force. And that was a bit of progress. But unfortunately, New Zealand is also complicit in Afghanistan. And it's great to have John McLean do a couple of songs here today. Great musician. Where are you? There you go.
Leads one of my nemesis. Great PA here. Easy going. Can you hear that? Well, Tanakwe, any Kiwis in the crowd? Someone said there's one over there. Woke this morning with my mind on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Ain't no harm keeping your mind on freedom. Ain't no harm keeping your mind on freedom. Ain't no harm keeping your mind on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. This old world's gonna fade away someday. This old world, it won't stay no way. This old world's gonna pass away someday. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. We stand together for justice and freedom. We're standing here for justice and freedom. We're standing here for justice and freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I woke up this morning with my mind on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Said hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Got my mind on freedom.
Thank you to my backing singers over there.
I could not do any stage dives. People on the street now, faces long and grim, souls are feeling heavy, faith is growing thin. Fair's getting stronger, and see it in the rise. Hopelessness got some by the throat, you can see it in their eyes. I said, how come? I said, how come? Everybody on the shoestring, everybody in this hole, everybody on the old jet plane, crossing their fingers and toes. Government man spin his politics, they got to use pen. Everybody trying to reach out to one another, but they don't know where to begin. I said, how come I can't tell the free world from a living hell? I said, how come? How come all I see is a child of God in misery? Said, how come? Pistol now a prophet and the bullet some kind of Lord and King. But the pain's the only promise that the so-called Savior's gonna bring. Love can be a lion, justice can be a thief, and freedom can be an empty cup from it, which everybody wants to drink. I said, how come I can't tell the free world from a living hell? I said, how come? How come all I see is a child of God in misery? I said, how come? Just man killing man, killing man, killing man, killing man, killing man. I don't understand. I don't understand. It's just man killing man, killing man, killing man, killing man, killing man. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. But I don't understand. Just man killing man, killing man, killing.
So many of our generals, so many of our ambassadors. It may be uncomfortable viewing, but WikiLeaks just holds up a mirror to the society that we have become. This is a test for us all. To me, the enemies of human rights win if we ignore torture. The enemies of democracy win if the rule of law is overturned. We in the Pirate Party movement have been happy to take up the tests and challenges, and because we're committed to internet freedom and civil liberties. We're a movement that believes in action. Our Swedish counterparts have been hosting WikiLeaks on their servers. Our activists have been out mirroring sites to keep the flow of information going. Does this mean that even though we're a democratic party, we should be subject to capital charges? Well, the treatment of Bradley Manning seems calculated to scare off those who are working for transparency and accountable democracy. Well, Washington! I'm not scared. These people are not scared. The people who are out demonstrating right around the world, from Australia, Europe, right through to US and to Quantico, we are not scared. What has astounded me is that despite the efforts of all you good people, is the deafening silence of our government. Mr. Hague, I know you're busy right now, but your job does actually require the ability to multitask. We're not asking for anything controversial. Consular access is not a lot to ask, or even to show that you care about a young man alone, naked in a cell. Thankfully, we've had the tireless work of the organisation UK Friends of Bradley Manning. Through their pressure, his case has found its way up the political agenda, has found its way up the media agenda. We look forward to a full debate in the House of Commons. That much they owe us. Significantly, the Speaker did not contradict Anne Clewett's point that Bradley Manning's conditions resemble those of Guantanamo Bay. It will be hard to keep focus on this story. We live in troubled times, but we cannot allow the government to sweep it under the carpet. What signal would that send? What example would that send to these amazing, inspiring young people who have come here today? A terrible signal. As I said, there comes a time when we're tested. For us, that time is now. Do we let an injustice lie, or do we speak out? We speak out. Thank you.
An international multiracial network of men gay and straight who work with Global Women's Strike, and Dee Rossi, who for lesbians, bi, trans and queers in the Global Women's Strike. Thank you very much.
I just want to say a few things about what we were shouting before. We heard from several speakers that Bradley Manning is not alone. And that's true. It's also true in I think, two different senses. One is that he's not alone in being in isolation. I got an article here published by Al Jazeera where they say that in the United States more than 20,000 inmates are held in supermax prisons, which by definition isolate their prisoners, whereas 50,000 to 80,000 more are in solitary confinement on any given day in other prisons. This is what, this is where Guantanamo comes from. This is what happens in the prisons in the United States that kind of give root to this kind of situation. But the other sense is that in which Bradley Manning is not alone is the resistance. And I have here a few messages coming from To Payday Men's Network, from other organizations with which we are in touch, about the situation of conscientious objectors and refuseniks in Europe and in the Mediterranean area. One is from Chris Capps. He is an international veteran against the war for Germany. And he says, I served in the US Army in Baghdad, Iraq from 2005 and 2006, and I deserted the US Army in 2007 to refuse to deploy to Afghanistan, and I currently live as a free man in Germany. Bradley Manning, if he is truly the person who gave classified military information to WikiLeaks, is someone who should be celebrated for performing such a courageous act instead of possibly facing the death sentence. And he continues, if the US was motivated by any sense of justice, why are they prosecuting and torturing the person who allegedly exposed crimes, illegal operations, and general hypocrisy, instead of those the US government has documented to have committed crimes? Then, another one from the Association of Greek Conscientious Objectors. They say, the Association of Greek Conscientious Objectors wishes to express its solidarity to Bradley Manning and protest his inhumane pre-trial punishment by the US authorities. As Amnesty International stated, the repressive conditions imposed on Manning breached the US obligation to treat detainees with humanity and dignity. And they attach a letter by one of the conscientious objectors in Greece, called Babis Akrivopoulos, to the judge, to the military judge, a woman, who is supposed to put him on trial and judge whether he is guilty or innocent for the crime of refusing to kill. And he says that, in fact, he is not going to go to the trial. He is not recognizing the jurisdiction of the military court in his case because he is a citizen and not a soldier. Another one coming from war resistors and human rights defenders from Turkey. They say, Bradley is a brave man who believes in humanity, who believes that war is a crime against humanity, who believes that we are important and we can change the world. Like Khalil Sauda, who served 2 years in prison for refusing to kill, and is now getting another 5 months for supporting Israeli refuseniks in Turkey. And Inan Suder, who served 1.5 years in prison for the same crime, saying that war is a crime, for saying that war is a crime and this is not a crime. Refusing to kill is not a crime. We are strong enough to change the world. We must believe in our power and show our solidarity against money. They have money and we have solidarity. We are more powerful than them. We just must believe in our power and show our solidarity. We are with you. We love and solidarity. Now, the other question is to raise and to highlight, I think, is that Bradley Manning is an openly gay man. And we must give tribute to the action and to the courageous resistance of gay men in this issue of refusing to kill. The first US soldiers who publicly refused to fight in Afghanistan, Stephen Funk, and Kieran mentioned him. Stephen Funk is a gay man. A Kurdish gay conscientious objector, Mehmet Taran, was put in prison for 11 months and tortured until a campaign, including Payday and the LGBTQ in the Global Women's Strike, supported him with many others. And we managed to organize with other networks a picket in 23 towns in 14 countries the same day, and we got him out. So this is very much an international issue as being stressed here. And let's not, we got other messages here from Italy, from people who just singularly thought it was a good idea to send us a message saying, we are with you. Last but not least, I would like to stress that Sue Glanton, Joe Glanton's mother, sent us a message wishing well to this demo and saying that what Joe Glanton, the first European soldier who refused publicly to go to Afghanistan, to fight in Afghanistan, has suffered is not what Bradley Manning is at this time. And she is actually behind these demos and wishes us well.
let's not forget what women do for this movement. Every refusnik almost always as a woman or more women, starting with the women in their family, supporting them. And this is why refusnik can resist, can say, I refuse to kill. If that presence of women and that support of women was not there, they couldn't do it so well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm from Lesbian, Bi, Trans, Queer in the Global Women's Strike, and we're delighted that this protest has been organised here in London outside the US Embassy, and our sisters and brothers are organising a protest in Philadelphia. And Bradley Manning is our gay hero. We think as people have said, he's been so brave to be out, and he's been really paying a high price for the leaking of the information of the criminal lies of the US government, and we have to defend him. And we have taken on the slogan that was used many years ago from an organization of Palestinian and Israeli LGBT people, which they said there's no pride in the slaughter of others, and we totally agree with that and totally support that. While some people in the lesbian and gay movement have campaigned for LGBT people to go into the military, we say we do not want the equality to kill people. We are against killing, and we do not think that we know why people go in. Some people go in for economic reasons, and we are campaigning for higher benefits, wages, against the cuts, so people are not forced into the military for economic reasons. But we are against the people in the LGBT movement who are campaigning for the right to kill. We're against it. I just wanted to say also that we are going to keep campaigning with all of you until he gets out. The torture he's under. The torture that he's under is absolutely terrible, as people have described. And we are going to keep. Sorry, Lawrence, I'm getting distracted. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. The torture that he's under, and I think the thing is also that he's. The torture of making him stand naked, we also feel they're particularly targeting, they torture many refuseniks in prison, but they're particularly targeting him in that way. I think there is a gay, aspect of the way that they're torturing him. And, for him to be, without cold and cut off from everyone in solitary confinement. And, we really are thinking of him and must keep him in our minds all the time. And we have a responsibility, as people have said already, as people on the outside, to keep defending and protecting our people in the inside who've taken this stand for all of us. And I just wanted to let also people know that, for example, I met someone Hugo Blanco from Peru, who's been part of the indigenous movement for many, many years, and they had an article about Bradley Manning, praising his action in Lucha Indígena in the newspaper. I just also wanted to say something. I'm sure people, everyone knows that another historic thing is happening at the moment. President Aristide and his family returned to Haiti on Friday after 7 years of forced exile. And Selma James, the international coordinator of the Global Women's Strike, which we're part of, was invited to be there to welcome them in Haiti, and is with the Aristides at the moment in the house in their house in Haiti. And there's been thousands of people have gone to see him and are absolutely delighted and thrilled that their leader is back. And we really have to keep defending our points of reference like Bradley Manning and our leaders like Aristides. And you do have in mind that, if we defend our leaders and protect them enough, for example, like Salvador Allende, many thousands of people would not be killed. And we have to keep speaking out and keep campaigning together. And just to follow on also from what Giorgio was saying, that many of the movements, many of us, especially women, are, often sometimes invisible, often invisible. In Egypt, I remember one man saying recently, for every man you see out in Tahrir Square, there are 6 women at home caring for the elderly, caring for people with disabilities, making food for the protests. So, we have to really keep in mind that it's often women and young women in Egypt who really call people to Tahrir Square, and that are doing a lot of the work, to lead the movement, at the forefront of the movement. And that I think also what we've learned, while we were watching, what we've learned from the movements in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Haiti, you know, things can change very fast. There's more of us than them. You know, we have to just organize together, get it together, and we can win. If we organize internationally, we can win. So, you know, free Bradley Manning, stop the torture, release him now.
A fellow Australian, great, amazing experience to be proud to be Australian. And because Australia has its long difficulties, basically in Australia we found our security not in seeking peace and justice generally, but in servicing imperialism, whether that be putting down the Maoris in the 1800s, or going off to the Boer War, turning up late for Khartoum. Three of my mother's uncles went to World War I in Europe, in Turkey. One was at Gallipoli. And then we changed gears, and when I was growing up in the back of Gallipoli Barracks in Brisbane, young men were off to Vietnam, and today they're off to Afghanistan and Iraq. And it's great we have people like Julian Assange and John Pilger, Roel Paris, Jermaine Greer, and our next speaker. I'd just like to probably butcher a Brecht quote. I think it was Brecht who said, there are those who struggle for a day and that is good. There's those who struggle for a year and that is beautiful. There's those who struggle for a decade and that's brilliant. And those who struggle for a lifetime, and those are the indispensable ones. So I'd like to introduce you to the indispensable Peter Tatchell.
Introduction. One of the problems with speaking towards the end is that nearly everything that's worth saying has already been said, and said very eloquently. So what I propose to do is just to recap some of the points and to reiterate some of the points that various people have made here today. I think the first one of which is, of course, you know, we are here in solidarity with Bradley Manning, and that solidarity is so important. Wherever there have been individuals imprisoned, wherever there have been popular movements against tyranny, international solidarity has been so important. When we listen to the words of Nelson Mandela when he spoke after his release from prison, one of the points he made was that the international solidarity campaign against apartheid was such an important morale boost, such an important way of giving hope and comfort to those people in South Africa, black and white, who were literally risking their lives and their freedoms to challenge the apartheid regime. So in that spirit, this rally today and other rallies elsewhere, in solidarity with Bradley Manning, is a very important thing for him and for all of us in this country and around the world who care about the right to truth, the right to know, and who have respect, admiration and appreciation for people like Bradley Manning, who are prepared to take the risks, the real risks to their personal freedom in order that we, the public, can know the truth. And that really is what this whole issue is all about. It's about the public's right to know. It's about our right to know what governments are doing in our name. Governments are supposed in a democracy to serve us. We don't serve them. The politicians are supposed to be our servants. They are there in power on license. We give them the license to do things in our name, and we expect accountability, we expect openness and transparency, and we expect that they listen to what we the people want. And I'm sure that if there's a poll today in Britain about the treatment of Bradley Manning, the vast majority of the British people would say to David Cameron and Nick Clegg that this abuse has got to stop, and you as our government have to do something to help stop it. As we all know, the leaked cables have shone a light on some terrible abuses. Crimes against humanity, war crimes, and just diplomatic screw-ups, shenanigans, and doublespeak. But these are all things that we have a right to know, and we would not have known if it had not been for the leaks. Perpetrated by Bradley Manning or whoever, we would not have known. And those leaks have exposed hypocrisy and double speak. They've broken the code of secrecy, the cover-ups on which our governments so often rely to mislead us, to drag us into wars that are illegal and unjust. Bradley Manning is not a lawbreaker. He is a law enforcer. He is seeking to enforce and defend international human rights law, the laws which prohibit the killing of civilians, that prohibit indiscriminate attacks upon targets, that prohibit the mistreatment of prisoners of war. These are all things that have been exposed thanks to the cables we've seen over recent months. And the real lawbreakers, as so many people have said, are not Bradley Manning or others, but the governments who have done these things in our name. They are the real criminals, the real lawbreakers, and thank heavens we have those cables so that we know what they were doing behind closed doors and in secret. Indeed, Bradley Manning, if he is the leaker, has done, as others have said, a great, great public service. A true hero of our times. I think very few of us, when faced with the dilemma that he had, would have been willing to do what he allegedly did and to be prepared to take the consequences that he's now suffering. He is enduring great, great, great hardship. I've never been in prison despite all the different laws I've broken, all the things I've done, but I've spent quite a long time in police cells, and I can tell you, even just 24 hours in a police cell, as many of you will know, is not exactly a very pleasant experience. But at least you've got the hope that, you know, the next morning you are going to court. Whereas with Bradley Manning, he doesn't know. You know, how long will he be behind bars? And for someone to maintain their sanity, their dignity, their resolve, despite all this, it's an enormous tribute to that man. I'm really, really proud of Bradley Manning, as I'm sure all of you are as well. In fact, I'd say he deserves a public award, not a prison sentence. We all know that the abuse that Bradley Manning is suffering is illegal and criminal. Solitary confinement and all the rest, these are against international humanitarian law. The United Nations Convention Against Torture states categorically that cruel and degrading punishments are illegal and unlawful and criminal. And that is without question what is happening to Bradley Manning. He is being subjected to cruel, degrading treatment. The United States has signed the Torture Convention. It's ratified it, it's pledged to uphold it, and right now in the case of Bradley Manning and others, it is defying the law itself that it itself promised to uphold. We need to get someone, find the people to refer this case to the International Criminal Court and get prosecution proceedings initiated against the government of the United States for allowing this to happen. There is this body of international law. Let's use it to bring the US to justice. As others have said, our government here in the UK needs to be doing not something, but a lot to ensure that the mistreatment of Bradley Manning ceases. He is a British citizen. He's entitled to the protection of the British government. And what I find so extraordinary is that David Cameron, who's tried to rebrand the Conservatives as some kind of caring, compassionate party, if they can't speak out against cruel and unusual and degrading treatment, those words count for nothing. that commitment counts for nothing. And as for Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats, who've always prided themselves on supporting human rights and civil liberties, where is his voice against the abuse of Bradley Manning? Again, Liberal Democrats, don't say the words, do the action. So finally, in conclusion, we're here as people in many places around the world protesting against the abuse of Bradley Manning. And our message to the British government and to the United States government is very simple. We want justice for Bradley Manning. We want an end to the abuse of Bradley Manning. Not later this year, not next year, not the year after, but now. Thank you.
Letter that was released recently. It's what happened prior to his being put on suicide watch, and this is how it occurred. I was pulled out of my cell for my 1 hour of recreation call. When the guards came to my cell, I noticed a change in their usual demeanour. Instead of being calm and respectful, they seemed agitated and confrontational. Instead of 2 or 3, there were 4. Almost immediately, they started harassing me. The first guard told me to turn left. When I complied, the second guard yelled, "Don't turn left." When I attempted to comply with the demands of the second guard, I was told by the first, "I said turn left." I responded with, "Yes, Corporal," to the first guard. At this point, the third guard chimed in by telling me that in the Marines we reply with "I" and not "yes." He then asked me if I understood. I made the mistake of replying, "Yes, Sergeant." At this point, the fourth guard yelled, "You mean I, Sergeant?" The harassment of the guards continued as I was escorted to my 1 hour of recreation. When I arrived at the recreation room, I was told to stand still so they could remove my leg restraints. As I stood still, one of the guards yelled, "I told you to stand still!" I replied, "Yes, Corporal, I am standing still." Another guard then said, "You mean I, Corporal?" Next, the same guard said, "I thought we covered this, you say I and not yes, do you understand?" I responded, "Aye, Sergeant." Right after I replied, I was once again yelled at to stand still. Due to being yelled at and the intensity of the guards, I mistakenly replied, "Yes, Corporal, I am standing still." As soon as I said this, I attempted to correct myself by saying "I" instead of "yes," but it was too late. One of the guards started yelling at me again. "What don't you understand? And are we going to have a problem?" Once the leg restraints were taken off me, I took a step back from the guards. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel myself getting dizzy. I sat down to avoid falling. When I did this, the guards took a step towards me. I instinctively backed away from them. As soon as I backed away, I could tell by their faces they were getting ready to restrain me. I immediately put my hands up in the air and said, "I'm not doing anything. I'm just trying to follow your orders." The guards then told me to start walking. I complied with their order by saying "I" instead of "yes." I was allowed to complete my hour of recreation. During this hour, the guards did not harass me further. They didn't harass me when I was escorted back to my cell. Later, I learnt that there had been a protest outside the gates of Quantico the previous day. The rally was intended to bring attention to the conditions of my confinement. It is my belief that the treatment of the 18th of January 2011 by the guards and later by the commander was related directly to this protest and to my earlier complaints. After being returned to my cell, I started to read a book. About 30 minutes later, the PV&CF commander CW04 Aberhart came to my cell. He asked me what had happened during my recreation call. As I tried to explain to him what had occurred, CW04 Aberhart stopped me and said, "I am the commander!" And he said that no one could tell him what to do. He also said that he was, for all practical purposes, God! I responded by saying, "What a hero!" He responded by saying, "You still have to follow BRIC procedures." Amazing! as a boss, they have to answer to. But what does he get? As soon as I said this, CW04 Aberhart ordered that I be placed on suicide risk status. Admittedly, once I heard that I would be placed under suicide risk, I became upset. Out of frustration, I placed my hands to my head and clenched my hair with my fingers. I did yell, "Why are you doing this to me?" I also yelled, "Why am I being punished? And I have done nothing wrong." I then asked CW04 Aberhart, "What have I done to deserve this type of treatment?" And you remember at this point that the Pentagon spokesman, Jeff Morrell, is quoted as, he actually said at a press conference, I think it was, he actually said that Bradley had been an exemplary prisoner. So he'd done nothing wrong, as we know. CW04 Aberhart did not answer any of my questions. He instructed the guards to enter my cell and take all my clothing. At first, I tried to reason with him by telling him that I had been a model detainee and by asking him to tell me just what he wanted me to do, and I would do it. However, I gave up trying to reason with him, as well he might have done, once the guards entered my cell and ordered me to strip. Instead, I lowered my head and started taking off my clothes. He placed me on suicide risk. This was over the recommendation of Captain Hochter and the Defence Forensic Psychiatrist, Captain Moore. His decision was also in violation of Secretary of Navy instruction, para whatever. As a result of being placed on suicide risk, I was confined to my cell for 24 hours a day. I was stripped of all my clothing with the exception of my underwear. Additionally, my prescription eyeglasses were taken away from me. Due to not having my glasses, I was forced to sit in essential blindness during the whole day. I remained on suicide risk until the 21st of January 2010. The determination to place me on suicide risk was without justification and constitutes unlawful pre-trial punishment. Now, that's just, to me, an example of the sort of pressure he's under and the sort of resistance that he is actually putting up and how well he is playing this. And what I'd really like to do now, if you don't mind, could you just come nearer to each other and hold hands? Is that possible? Do you mind doing that? Just everybody hold hands. Please, could you just hold hands? Because I want to send Bradley our love, and if we don't love each other, then, you know, there's not much point doing that. Hold hands, touch one another. You know, we love each other, we love Bradley, okay? And what I'd like to say now is, could you just be quiet for 1 minute, about 1 minute, not too long, and do whatever you do, pray, meditate, send your vibes to Bradley. Tell him, we love you, Bradley. We wish you peace. We bless you, Bradley. Bless you. Can we just be quiet now for about a minute? Peace to you, Bradley. We love you. We are your brothers and sisters. You are our brother.
bless you. We bless you. Thank you.
Over and over again and meditating on it really worthwhile. Two things that just struck me there. One is it's very instructive that the American state still finds questioning authority as a sort of suicidal tendency. The other thing, I remember when we broke into the B-52 base, the first time we had to break out, we couldn't find the B-52, we reported back to Phil Berrigan, who's now passed away in heaven, so I can tell you the story. He's not there, none of us get there. And he said, you know, retrospect is 20/20 vision. He's kind of critical of we didn't find the B-52, they're pretty big. And just looking at that letter again, and you know, the thing about, we say I in the Marines, it's easy for me to say not being there, but the response really is, well, you may do that, but I'm in the American Army, and what am I doing in a Marine base? And if you want to induct me into Marines, I might say I for you. But and that's what the commander of Quantico, who's at Quantico today from 1959 down there protesting, that's his question. What is a member of the American Army doing in a Marine base? You know, they've got Briggs in Kansas, Leavenworth for American Army prisoners, and that puts lie to their proposition that he's been treated like any other prisoner. You know, total lie. I want to thank Danny and Serena earlier for posing as Bradley Manning. If anyone wants to get a photo before it comes out of character. Also, Sister Susan's here through Lent up to Easter on Wednesday, 12 to 2, if anyone wants to join us. She comes down from Oxford. We've got a gig on the 17th of April with Gareth Pearce, and Gareth Pearce has got a very interesting, great woman, so humble, very hard to promote. She's got this court case going that in Europe, in America, they can hold you in solitary confinement if you tell me your natural life because of how the Supreme Court have interpreted the 8th Amendment. In Europe, under Article 3, they can't do that. They see association with other human beings is essential to heat, clothing, food. And she's got an argument that they should stop all extraditions from Europe, which might help Julian. And she'll be speaking, and there'll be music. John will be back, and all sorts of people. Recruited the lead singer of a punk rock band on St. Patrick's Day the other night, but hopefully save it up and still commit. But it'll be great, and there's a blue leaflet going around with that. That's not it. Someone hold it up over there. There's some great different groups here. We're a pretty eclectic bunch, and we're going to have an open mic, we're going to have some music, but it's just as significant to drift off with any one of the speakers or any one of the groups and swap emails and connect, because we don't want to come as individuals and leave as individuals. We want to come as individuals and leave as a movement. So it's just, we won't be offended if you drift off over there, and so we're going to have open mic, 3 minutes. Scott Elbrecht, do you want to kick it off? You're not shy. And there's a guitarist, Ket, out there. And if you want to speak, just line up here. Yeah, just 3 minutes. Anyone got a watch better than mine, that'd be helpful. And feel free to mingle and connect, and thanks very much.
Yo.
Yo, we got 3 Americans. And, and everyone in that building, and probably that guy over there. Yeah, I'm an American. I was born in, where are you from? Where are you from, sir?
From LA.
LA. Okay, I'm from Chicago.
He's from Chile. I am from Chile.
Oh, that's South America. Still the Americas, though, isn't it? Okay, so I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I came from a very broken family, and just like Bradley did, I suppose, sought the American military.